This video is sponsored by War Thunder. In February, I flew to Okinawa, Japan to join the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit on the America Amphibious Ready Group. For a week, I lived aboard the USS Rushmore, getting a first-hand look at how one of the most complex military units in the world works, an amphibious ready group. During this week, I learned how the US Navy and US Marines work together to make such complex amphibious operations go smoothly, how much work is behind amphibious ops logistics, and even challenged them to a pull-ups fight. Results at the end of the video. In this video, we'll be covering why the Amphibious Ready Group is essential in the first island chain theater context, explained with maps and 3D models, how it functions as both a force projection and logistics hub, and lastly, how it enables the Marines' Expeditionary Bases Operations Strategy. Welcome to the US Marines Expeditionary Units and the US Navy's Amphibious Ready Group Explained. First, let's talk about why the ARG is relevant. In the span of a decade, the United States Marine Corps, USMC, has shifted its military posture from counterinsurgencies in the Middle East and South Asia to major conflict in the Indo-Pacific. This shift has been accompanied by a change in the logistics of the US Marines. During operations in the Middle East and South Asia, the service relied on huge logistical hubs called Iron Mountains to resupply units. However, these are not suitable for the Indo-Pacific threat scenario and geography. As a result, the Marines have developed Iron Hills, which mitigate the risk of enemy attacks and make the supply chain more robust by spreading logistics to smaller and more dispersed hubs. The change in battlefield geography from land to sea further complicates this supply chain network. First, non-contiguous terrain makes networking more complex, as ships and aircraft are required to move supplies. Second, the sheer size of the Indo-Pacific puts a burden on supply chains. Geographically, the Indo-Pacific covers about 52% of the Earth's surface, making it much larger than any other battlefield. This means very distant objectives must be reached without infrastructure. Looking at a map of Okinawa illustrates this point. Okinawa sits along the first island chain, which connects the northern tip of Japan through Taiwan and the Philippines to Singapore. Along this chain, hundreds of small and bigger islands are separated into archipelagos with hundreds of miles of ocean in between. This stretch of islands is not only vital for US and Japanese forces, but also for other countries. A significant percentage of global traffic passes through the straits and channels along this chain, such as the Luzon Strait or the Miyako Strait. This makes the ARG essential in maintaining open seas and deterring any disruption to global sea lines of communication. The Western Pacific environment here poses significant challenges. Typhoons, storms, and even tides often disrupt resupply efforts, requiring a logistical structure that can adapt to these conditions. As the ARG Commodore German explained,
adversaries are predictable. Weather's not.
In this geographical context, the Amphibious Ready Group is a versatile asset. It can transport troops and supplies without relying on runways, land armored vehicles without needing ports, and deliver a combat force to areas inaccessible to others. Okay, so what exactly is an Amphibious Ready Group then? The Amphibious Ready Group is not a single vessel. It's a combined Navy-Marine Corps formation. While the Navy provides the ships, the Marines provide the fighting capabilities. An ARG is usually comprised of three different types of ships: an amphibious assault ship, LHA, a landing platform dock, LPD, and a dock landing ship, LSD. However, to platform such a wide variety of missions, each ship and unit in the ARG is geared toward a specific role. The LHA is the center and the brain of the ARG, where the majority of supplies are stored and where the aviation group operates from. This includes kinetic platforms like F-35Bs or the AH-1s, as well as utility aircraft such as the UH-1, MV22, and the CH53. In Okinawa, the attached LHA was the USS America. Then there is the LPD, which is a bit of a jack of all trades. It combines advanced command and control capabilities with a flight deck where MV22 can operate from, and a well deck, housing up to 2 LCACs. In my case, this was the USS San Diego. Last but not least, there is the LSD, which has the most available free space among the three, and serves as the logistics workhouse and main vehicle garage. In February, this was the USS Rushmore, my home for the week. This ship features the largest well deck in the group, and even has a turning table that allows even bulkier trucks to turn from the main bridge ramp to the well deck. Together, these ships can carry over 2,200 Marines, as well as helicopters, hovercraft, armored vehicles, spare parts, food, fuel, and, of course, ample rations of crayons. They basically bring everything on board that's needed to perform the missions. In a nutshell, the ARG plays two main roles. The first is power projection, which practically means being able to deploy the land force, aka the Marines, over long distances through sea, land, and air. The second is its role as a core component of the USMC supply chain operation, resupplying units over a large theater. But to protect and sustain power ashore, the ARG needs connectors, the platforms that move Marines, armor, food, fuel, and ammo from ship to land. These platforms are the US Marines' real versatility enabler. Before we dive deeper into the Marines' ship-to-shore connectors, here's a word from this video's sponsor, War Thunder. As we trace the supply lines across the Pacific from Okinawa to Guam via amphibious ships and its aerial and sea connectors, just consider how simulation matters, not only in the planning, but also in how scenarios can quickly change. War Thunder offers ultra-realistic logistics and combat dynamics, emulating the same challenges the Marines train for, maneuvering with allies, managing fuel, and keeping your machines running. If you've ever wanted to try your hand at piloting military aircraft or lead a tank assault, War Thunder makes it real. This free multiplayer game is available on PC, consoles, and mobile devices, and it lets you command over 2,500 authentic vehicles on land, air, and sea. New players, or those who haven't played in the last 6 months on PC and consoles, can use the links in the description to get multiple premium vehicles, 100,000 Silver Lions, 7 days of premium gameplay, a unique vehicle decorator, among other bonuses. Check out the limited offer by using the links in the description and gain some premium rewards. Now, let's get back to those connectors, the real MVPs of amphibious ops. There are 4 primary ship-to-shore connectors that connect an ARG in the middle of the ocean to the shore: LCACs, LCUs, CH53k, and the MV22. These 4 are mainly categorized by how much they can lift, how far they can move it, and then how fast they can deliver it. Unarguably, the LCUs and the LCACs are the go-to options when the Marines need to land heavy trucks, supplies, fuel, and ammo on a beach. These are the ARG heavy lifters. But first, what even are these?
So LCACs is the acronym for Landing Craft Air Cushion, and these are your hovercraft that float above the surface of the water, right? And then you can load them up with tanks and trucks or personnel carriers, so we can very rapidly deploy assets to the beach. LCUs are your more conventional watercraft that are sitting in the water as opposed to floating above it, right? And these are slightly bigger versions of what you may have seen in movies like Saving Private Ryan, right? Or The Pacific. And this is another way to bring assets to the beach. The advantage for both of them is that they're both able to deploy right onto the beach. They don't need to have a dock, they don't need a pier or anything like that. So that's one of the major advantages of getting assets on these amphibious warships and sending them out to assault beaches and whatnot.
So, as TCO Viernes explained, the LCACs and the LCUs are the main naval connectors of the ARG. Despite doing the same job, these are suited for different needs. LCACs are the Ferraris of sea connectors. These can carry over 75 tons at a speed in excess of 40 knots. By comparison, the LCUs cruise at 11. LCACs achieve these speeds by reducing the water in contact with the hull, by hovering over it. Technically, it means that these ships are sort of flying over the water. Practically, the people operating them could be called pilots. However, these can also stay in place without burning gas, like here, which happens a lot when you're waiting for orders or plans to change. Spoiler alert, these two activities are like half of the military life. These can carry more than 70 tons, which is about 1 M1 Abrams, or 2 to 4 7-ton trucks loaded with 2 to 3 pallets, which translates to about 4 days' worth of food for a battalion. One major advantage the LCACs have is that by hovering over the water and land, they reach over 70% of the world's coastline, whereas LCUs reach about 15%. This allows even heavily loaded trucks to avoid getting stuck in the wet sand. The well decks of the LPDs and LSDs are designed to recover both LCACs and LCUs, with huge ventilation openings, like this one on the USS Rushmore, and the ballast system that can lower the ship aft by 8 to 9 feet. However, when the Marines need quantity over speed, they rely on landing crafts. LCUs are sturdy and relatively simple machines, requiring relatively simple maintenance. They can lift in excess of 150 tons, which translates to 3 M1 Abrams. When they dock to the ARG, the receiving ship needs a ballast in order to lower the ship aft by 8 to 9 feet to allow LCUs to come on in. This part of the ship is called, for such reason, the well deck. LCUs and LCACs are essential connectors. Where the LCUs can haul heavy cargo, LCACs can fastly unload them. Sometimes, however, a beach isn't an option, or weather conditions make the sea route unusable. That is where vertical lift comes in. In an ARG, there are 2 main connectors, the CH53 and the MV22 Osprey. Here's an Osprey pilot captaining Shinkle, callsign pooh, describing their operations.
The 53 is a heavy lift helicopter, so it has a lot of capability to lift cargo and troops, more so than the Osprey does, but it's a little slower. It also does a lot of external capabilities, so those hanging things underneath the helicopter, that's a lot of what the 53 brings to bear. What the Osprey's capability is long range and speed. So we have the capability to carry a little less than the 53, but we move about twice as fast, a little over twice as fast. And then we have a longer range, longer legs. This becomes important when you look at how the Navy is starting to disseminate at longer distances away from each other, operating in the Western Pacific. So that allows Ospreys to get ship to ship and ship to shore, which that capability doesn't really exist anywhere else in the world.
The CH-53 is the Marines' heavy lifter. It can move 30 fully geared troops inside its cabin, or it can sling load up to 36,000 pounds outside, enough to carry an F-35B. The capability of hauling bulky and heavy loads from ships to hilltops on faraway islands becomes essential in the building of expeditionary bases. But high lifting isn't enough. To complement the heavy lifting role of the CH-53K, the Marines have another ace up their sleeve that offer longer range and much higher speeds. The Osprey, fast, long-ranged, capable of flying over the weather, and versatile. Its range can exceed 1,100 nautical miles depending on its cargo.
What the Osprey brings to the fight, which is unique, and it's the reason we were built, is the ability to self-deploy. I can leave from Japan and hit almost anywhere in the theater without a tanker. Depending on what the fuel is. With a tanker, I can hit anywhere in the theater. We routinely have Ospreys that cross the Pacific and cross the Atlantic with tanker support. So these are things that occur, and that's the capability that the Osprey has. What that brings to the fight for the Marine Corps is that we can employ troops anywhere in the Western Pacific through the use of the Osprey, or the Pacific in general, through the use of the Osprey and our tanker support, which is organic, by utilizing that distance capability, high-altitude troop movements, things of that nature. So that's what really brings it to the game. It's a long-distance problem, right? The Pacific is a distance problem. What the Osprey's challenge is, but also what goes back to that advantage, is the ability to make that range happen while figuring out the logistics of how to do so.
Also, there is another hidden major advantage to using MV22s from Okinawa. Japan's self-defense forces also operate the MV22s, which allows them to jointly train with the Marines. Here's what Captain Shinkle says about it.
I'm carrying foreign troops, and Japanese V-22s are carrying American troops. We are always swapping. And the intent of that being is that we learn the same tactics, techniques, and procedures so that if we ever do integrated operations, that becomes seamless. And really, we're getting there. I've been very happy working with everyone that I've worked with, the Japanese V-22 community and our V-22 community, with those 2 squadrons that exist in Japan, operate almost seamlessly. We know each other. We work together at a personal level. We've operated with the same TTPs and the same ranges, tactics, techniques, and procedures. Which almost makes that seamless every time we get to work together, no matter what that question is.
Although I didn't directly witness it during my time with the ARG, the service has been experimenting with unmanned connectors. These include smaller aerial drones and the larger autonomous low-profile vessel, ALPV, capable of stealthily carrying over 5 tons over 2,000 nautical miles, which we covered in a previous video. These systems are becoming increasingly important because they offload tasks from high-value platforms like LCACs and MV22s. They also have a much smaller footprint compared to the manned systems, making them ideal for smaller, low-profile, dispersed bases of operation. These platforms have already been used in real-world scenarios, such as in the Philippines and in Japan. The ALPV has been undergoing sea trials with the 12th Littoral Logistics Battalion in Okinawa since March 2025, whereas a plethora of aerial drones were also used in the Balikatan 2025 exercise in the Philippines. Other countries have been inspired by this approach, with China, for instance, trying to catch up by experimenting with catapults for its fixed-wing drones aboard its Type 076. As a part of its reorganization from the Middle East to the Indo-Pacific, the Marines have focused on increasing deterrence by expanding rather than focusing their presence across a wider theater, with dispersed expeditionary advanced basis operations, EABO in short. The Marines are not reinventing the wheel with this expeditionary base.
In the 40s, we had to island hop to continue to build our bases up as we worked our way through the Pacific. And that took time because the only way to maneuver at that time was shipping, right? Or naval ships. At this point, with the Osprey's capability to land to an LZ, return to a ship, and then still utilize fixed wing speeds, you shrink that time horizon between EABOs. That allows us to be able to operate deeper into the operating area, and then it also allows us to maintain replenishment of those assets where that capability wouldn't exist before. And it's not a capability that we often see with other nations operating in the theater.
Characterized by smaller size, low signals and logistical signature, and high firepower capabilities, these bases offer unique advantage and adaptability to different scenarios. In 2019, the 31st MEU simulated EABO. During this exercise, they seized an airfield and set up an expeditionary base capable of supporting C-130J, F-35B, and rotary wing operations. Then, they seized a second neighboring island, which served as a base for HIMARS to conduct long-range strikes. But how much food, fuel, and ammo is required to support such an expeditionary base? Well, a 2021 report by Naval War College finds that a Marine Corps proposed by Navy Expeditionary Ship Interdiction System Force Structure, the building block of USMC strategy, consists of about 90 Marines, 18 JLTV similar transports, and 12 MTVRs. So every day, this unit needs 5,400 pounds in water and food, 7,000 pounds of ordnance, and 10,000 pounds of fuel. That's like refueling 100 cars every single day. This means that every Marine carries a load of upward to 80 pounds, but they also need constant resupplying to keep it fighting. So, how does the beached U.S. Marines logistics work in practice? Well, to understand that, I asked Captain Holman of the 31st MEU Combat Logistics Battalion Bravo Company.
The Combat Logistics Battalion is part of the LCE, so we provide the logistics support within the 31st MEU. So the ACE obviously provides the airlift, and we provide the logistics support. So we transport the supplies, the troops, the equipment, pretty much just resupplying the BLT with bullets, band-aids, beans, all the classes of supply that they would need, fuel, as well as casualty care. Typically what you'll see a company-sized element go ashore first, just to kind of manage footprint out there. And then as the maneuver element phases more people ashore, the logistical requirement to support them increases outside the realm of what a company can organically provide. So that's when you'll phase another company-sized element ashore, and by that point, you have a battalion logistic hub established. But establishing a battalion logistic hub at the beach may not necessarily be the best idea for a lot of reasons. So they'll go ahead and move further inland and set up, could be a battalion-sized element further inland, leaving behind a platoon, more or less, at the beach. And then again, depending on how the maneuver element keeps going to reduce that resupply time, the battalion can then send out a company-sized element ahead of the battalion. So you basically have like a leapfrog effect of like a platoon-sized element at the beach, battalion about maybe an hour or two inland, and a company size element or a platoon size element an hour to further inlet from that, just basically to keep that transit time as short as possible for resupply.
The Navy Marine Expeditionary Ship Interdiction System, or NEMESIS for short, serves as a prime example of how the EABO strategy is unfolding and may evolve in the future. NEMESIS is built around anti-ship cruise missiles, such as the Tomahawk or the Naval Strike Missile, which are central to the Marines' Expeditionary Advanced Base Strategy. These missiles deter aggression on U.S. bases in allied nations, while creating control in strategic bottlenecks and bodies of water across the first and second island chains, creating areas of denial where enemy ships can be targeted. The Marines' versatility creates deterrence. Unlike other services, they can store weapons and supplies on their ships, stash them on remote islands, refuel at sea with a Navy military sealift command ships, and then reach any beach or hilltop using their ship-to-shore connectors. In May 2025, the Marines and the U.S. Army deployed HIMARS and unmanned NEMESIS platforms to the Batanes and Babuyan island chains, simulating strikes against ships transiting the Luzon Strait during Balikatan 2025. From a different perspective, if a country like China wanted to break through the first island chain, it relies on passing through bottlenecks, like the Luzon and Miyako Straits. It then becomes clear how these systems create an effective sea control capability in gaining access to the Pacific Ocean from the South China Sea. But if we expand the envelope of their capabilities even further, these also cover the southern end of Taiwan, where the island's largest port infrastructure, Kaohsiung, is located. This practical example highlights the importance of logistics for the U.S. Marines mission. Looking at the first island chain from this perspective, we can see how close islands are to each other on the inner side of the island chain, and how scarce they are on the other side. Only a multi-domain and versatile platform can overcome this distance and support the units on the ground. The change in the threat environment in the region has brought a major reevaluation of amphibious warfare, not only in the US, but also South Korea, Japan, and China. All of these countries value being able to project power over faraway islands. This is demonstrated by the increased capability of such forces, where Japan is gaining more ships and tilt rotors, and China is acquiring numerous hulls with specialized well decks and flight decks, equipped with catapults to launch drones and aircraft. The USMC can also leverage another advantage: its close relationship with allied nations' armed forces. By constantly trading with regional partners like Australia, Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines, the Marines are also developing a network of pre-positioned supplies in key areas and a network of civilian contractors supplying food and fuel. Pre-positioning can provide the initial suppliers, while civilian contracting gets it up and running. The U.S. Marines missions rely on logistics, and I hope this video showed how much work actually goes into it. I gotta say, I met some of the kindest and smartest people during my time with them. The change in the theater of operation prioritizes versatility and being able to come up with solutions with whatever means available. It is also true that the service is experimenting with unmanned systems that further play into the dispersed, low-footprint expeditionary bases strategy. Finally, I want to thank Captain Ronda from the 31st MEU and all other people who helped in making this video possible. And of course, thank you again to War Thunder. Check out that limited offer by using the links in the description and gain some premium rewards. If you liked this video, feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, the thumbs down button also works. Also, what do you think of impact of drones on supply chains? Comment below. If you're still here, it means you want to know how the pull-ups challenge went. So this is the USMC captain going first, and he got 19 reps. Now my turn. I only got 13 pull-ups. So the bottom line here is the USMC captains are fit. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you at the next one. Ciao.